Hello, everybody, and welcome to our next session at Fire By Live. In this exclusive interview session, I'm joined by Lionel Caillat, the Vice President and General Manager of Commercial Fire EMEA for Honeywell Building Technologies. Thank you for joining us, Lionel. Just to start, could you give us a little background into who Honeywell is and what part you play in the contributing to the fire industry, please?
Sure. Honeywell is well. First, nice meeting you, Rebecca, and thanks for having me on this show. Honeywell is obviously a large company, but in terms of fire detection, Honeywell is one of the key, global leader in fire detection, and we go to market through many different brands. In Europe, these are brands like Gent, Esser, Eltec, Notifier, and we've been in this business for many years.
Thank you. So the industry of passive fire prevention technologies is adapting quite a lot over recent times as well. But the introduction of detectors that can sense smoke before it's even visible is something that particularly kind of interested me from Honeywell. So how does Honeywell see this changing of the landscape of early fire detection and prevention in the UK?
Yeah, it actually fits very well with our vision, right? Because what we aspire to is to move from fire detection to fire prevention. And the way to get there is to detect first the fire as early as possible, right? So having this new technology that can do that. And ultimately, and maybe we'll talk about that, is detect the condition for a fire before the fire actually happens to actually prevent the fire, right? So that's very much aligned with our vision. And there's two main technology that we've rolled out in terms of early fire detection. One, and maybe we can talk more about that, is around kind of aspirating technology, but there's also something very recently that we've launched, especially for lithium-ion battery fire risk, which actually detect the risk of a fire before the fire actually starts.
Wow, okay. And what types of environments are these typically seen in, do you know?
Well, so the fire detection solutions that we offer are within buildings. So, anything within buildings is kind of our remit. So it could be in a small environment or very large halls and warehouses, and these solutions apply very well as well.
And could you just shed some light on the specifics of the technology that's behind these advanced detectors and how they differentiate perhaps from traditional smoke alarms?
Yes, so the traditional smoke alarm, you would have a smoke detector typically on the ceiling, right? And you would basically wait for the smoke to fill the space a bit and rise to the smoke detector that would, through different means, sense the smoke, right? So there's a delay between the moment the fire actually starts, create the smoke, and then kind of slowly the smoke rise to the smoke detector. The two new technology I briefly touched on, the first one is aspirating technology. So what we do is we actually sample the air within the room and detect within this air sampling if there's some early smoke signal, and that has a much faster reaction time, right? Because you don't have to wait for the smoke again to raise to the smoke detector. So by this aspirating the air and sampling the air within the room, you have a much faster reaction to smoke detection. The other technology I touched on, which is specific to risk of fire in lithium-ion batteries, is actually detecting the off-gassing of the batteries before the fire starts, right? So lithium-ion batteries, have some fire risk, and within the battery, there's some kind of chemical reaction that happens as the battery is starting to be overloaded, for example, and create the risk of a fire. So we're detecting, in this case, this chemical reaction before the fire actually starts, which means that you can actually stop loading the battery and avoid the fire entirely.
Something that's incredibly important at the moment, detection of lithium-ion batteries. So I'm sure that's been well received by market. And Indeed. As Honeywell advances its fire protection technologies, prevention technologies, how are integrated systems playing a role in offering a more holistic solution to buildings and businesses?
Yeah, I think that's an important area of our development as well. If you look at buildings, there's typically different systems within the building. You have the fire detection system, you have the building management system that manage the comfort and the energy span within the building, and typically a security system as well. And by integrating these three systems together, there's different set of values you can generate. The first obvious one is that you give the users one comprehensive view of what's happening across the building. But as we walk into our path of moving from fire detection to fire prevention, we think we can aggregate the data of these three systems to detect conditions for fire before they actually happen, right? So you can detect outlier conditions within the HVAC system, for example, and to trigger some pre-alarm and look at whether there's a fire risk. So there's a convenience aspect and a compliance aspect for the end user to see all these systems in one supervision or dashboard. And there's some interesting opportunity in terms of fire prevention as well.
And how does integrating different systems, like you said, fire detection or building management systems, improve safety measures and streamline operations for building users?
So I think a big aspect is compliance and making sure that all the systems are up and running. And when we talk about fire detection, typically in all countries, there are regulations and obligations in terms of maintenance and testing the sensors, for example, on a regular basis. Without this kind of supervision system, the compliance is proven in a more analog way with the paper trail. And as we're connecting all of this system in one kind of supervision, we can now have digital trace of maintenance being done, right? So from a compliance point of view for the end user, there's a big step that we can achieve now by demonstrating that all the sensors are tested on a regular basis and are compliant with the latest codes.
And speaking of this kind of new types of technology coming into play in the fire safety market, in your opinion, are there any other emerging trends in fire protection technology that businesses should be aware of or that you think are upcoming in the next few years?
Yeah, and there's another technology that we're just rolling out actually in the UK in the next few weeks, which is the first ever self-testing sensor, right? So it's quite revolutionary, and that has a number of benefits. One is a massive reduction in the maintenance time. So instead of taking hours to test the building by testing each sensor one by one, we can do that in minutes. But there's also, again, a big compliance aspect as well, because we can guarantee that each sensor is tested because it's actually testing itself and generating its own little smoke and verifying that everything works. So if you think of some of the issues that are facing all industry, one being the shortage of skilled laborers, having this kind of solution dramatically helps, right? Because we need much fewer people to actually do the same outcome in terms of ensuring that the buildings are compliant with the regulations. So we think this self-test sensor is really quite an innovation that we're launching right now.
And definitely, and I suppose it also helps combat the current kind of issues we're having with raising competency in the fire safety industry as well. And the responsibilities on the responsible person, who qualifies or completely comprehends the ability to be able to maintain every single different type of solution that's in one building when you have everything integrated with fire doors, ventilation, detectors. So having something that can actually provide a report of what needs maintenance, when it needs maintenance, and how it does, I think will be incredibly beneficial to the industry. And just also, how is digital transformation enhancing fire prevention solutions, especially considering obviously the rapid evolution of smart buildings?
Yeah, again, the one aspect of digital transformation is aggregating all of this data in the cloud, right, and making that available in some useful way for customers. And to the point that you just mentioned, again, looking at the challenge with skilled labor shortage, this kind of digital solutions can guarantee that the system is up and running, and again, that it's verified on a regular basis, and there's a digital trace of every test that we're making, for example, to ensure compliance, right? So this idea of driving compliance is, I think, important for building managers, and is becoming more of a challenge with lack of skilled laborers, right? So removing this, moving into these digitally connected solutions guarantee a much higher compliance without this issue of skilled laborers. Smart building again means that all of these systems cannot be interconnected, right? And one of the benefits, for example, is if you think there is actually a when there is an actual fire in place, by connecting the fire detection system with other information that we have in the building, we can, for example, guide the firefighters on what's going on inside the building, right? We can look at occupancy sensors and say, there's a fire on the first floor and there seem to be, 5 people on that floor based on the occupancy information that we have. So by aggregating all of this data together, now we can give a much more rich set of information to firefighters when we actually do get a fire.
And obviously, we've spoken at length a little bit about kind of sensors and IoT devices, but it's difficult to mention digital transformation without acknowledging the rapid development of artificial intelligence. So how can this type of new technology be integrated into fire prevention systems for more of a proactive and predictive safety measure?
Yeah, that's the next kind of frontier, right? So one aspect is, as we're connecting all of this system in the clouds, we now have millions of sensors that are connecting in the cloud, right? So we're starting to look at it from a big data point of view and see what insight we can extract out of that very rich data set to help our customers and give them more insight. So we are early in this journey, but that's what we're starting to do. And as I mentioned earlier, by connecting BMS system and security system and fire system in one supervision, we think we can look at outlier conditions to detect the conditions of potential fire before they happen, right? So this is where artificial intelligence would play a key role in evaluating these scenarios.
Do you see any challenges coming to the forefront when it comes to AI?
I think the first challenge is to gather the data, right? So again, in Honeywell, we're at the phase where we have, tens of millions of sensors actually connected to the cloud, right? So we're starting to have enough data to actually extract some good insights. But our ambition is to ultimately connect every fire system to the cloud to help our customers, but enable this data-rich analysis. And then there's a number of more kind of tactical aspect for the building owners that have their system connected to the cloud. We need to ensure this is done in a way which is obviously very cyber secure, right? So that's a big focus for Honeywell to ensure that that's the case, and then deploy the right technology on top of it.
I think convergence has been quite a big theme across Fire by Live and Security by Live. We're seeing it crop up, having that cyber resilience inside all physical security or fire systems. So I think that's quite a big challenge facing the industry at the moment. Are there any other challenges that you think could prevent kind of or halt the implementation of these advanced fire prevention technologies?
Yeah, I mean, when you think of connecting these different systems together, the typical contractual route to market is a bit limiting, right? We tend to have work inside building in silos, right? You have the BMS contractual chain, which is different than the fire one or security one. So kind of breaking this go-to-market contractual barrier is another implementation challenge. And for us, we address that by engaging with end users directly, so we can from the get-go make sure that we define the right system, right? But this is not an industry that has been very good in the past at breaking these barriers between the different systems.
And obviously you mentioned compliance a little bit earlier in the interview, but with these increasingly stringent fire safety regulations coming into play more so in the UK at the moment, how do you think this technology is evolving that can help businesses stay compliant?
Yeah, I think one of the question is the future of building as well, right? Are there new fire risks that are coming from the new way of doing buildings, more energy efficient buildings? Again, that gets us to this battery fire risk issue. So more renewable buildings might mean more renewable energy actually on the building and batteries to deal with that, and that create different fire risks. So adapting our solution all the time to the way buildings are built is obviously a very important aspect of what we're trying to do here.
And in your perspective, how crucial do you think the continuous research and development aspect is to shaping the future of fire prevention technology?
Yeah, I think it's very critical. The few kind of innovations I talked about, come from a lot of work with our R&D team and some external parties to come up with the right solution, right? So there's anything we can do in this business is ultimately about saving life and preventing assets destruction. So there's a big incentive for the industry to keep on driving innovation, so we can move in these directions where ultimately we'll have less and less fire issues, right? But the innovation, at least for us, is a key way forward. That's a big focus on how Honeywell is trying to differentiate.
And obviously, you mentioned a couple partnerships there, but also in respect to making your products cyber resilient, for example. Obviously, you'd have to work with types of partners in that respect. How important do you think collaboration and partnerships is to driving innovation in this space? And is there anything specific that Honeywell is keen to collaborate on, for example?
Yeah, so given the scale of Honeywell, we have the kind of the luxury of having a lot of expertise in-house, right? Whether it's cybersecurity or cloud solutions or sensor technology, right? We have a lot of businesses across Honeywell family that help us in this way. What we're trying to do is really to drive co-innovation with our customers, right? So we do believe that the best way to innovate is to engage with the critical end users and customers and work with them, understand their pain points, and develop with them the right solutions. So I think this co-innovation with customers is really the way forward for us.
And I think also when it comes to integrated systems and the smart building, obviously you have IoT and you have sensors all talking to each other, but it goes further than integration. It goes more interoperable when it comes to those partnerships with other manufacturers, with end users, with building managers, etc. So I think it's very important that, like you said, that those skills are being utilized, whether they're in-house or whether they're external. And just lastly, before we finish, how do you envision the future of fire prevention technology in the next decade or so, especially obviously with the increasing emphasis on sustainable and energy efficient buildings like you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, I think, again, if you go back to the big themes, right? So the macro themes, one is this skilled labor shortage, right? The world is running out of workers. So we need a fire detection solution which enable the same or higher level of safety with less people, right? So again, moving maintenance in a digital way is very important for that. Connecting all of our system in the cloud to drive compliance for the end users without the requirement of this skilled labor is very important. And then I think the second theme is sustainability, right? So our customers want to move along in their sustainable path, and we also want to help there, right? So having remote maintenance, for example, enabled, allow to minimize the number of truck rolls in a building, right? So that helps from a sustainability point of view, and ultimately preventing fire drives a big sustainable impact because they were not emitting CO2 by burning buildings. So I think that drives, again, from a technology point of view, much more digital adoption, because with that we can both reduce the skilled labor required and drive bigger prevention, which minimize which increases stability for customers.
Is there anything else that you'd like to mention just before we close?
No, but I really appreciate the discussion. Thanks a lot, Rebecca.
No, thank you, Lionel. Really appreciate your time and the time taken to speak with us today. If anybody has any further questions, please feel free to reach out to Lionel on the platform and continue the conversation. Thank you.